All right, guys, welcome to our third lecture. What we're going to talk about is the difference between leadership and management. This is something that I'm certainly guilty of. A lot of organizations that I've been a part of have been guilty of, and so it's something we're going to discuss a little bit this week. So we're going to look at a little bit of the, history of how we determined what's the difference between leadership and management. We're going to look at the similarities, the differences. We're going to look at what really somebody who's a manager should be doing versus somebody who's a leader. And then we're going to, reiterate what we already said is going to be kind of our definition of leadership. So, organizations that are successful, that survive, guys, they basically work hard to set goals and craft a mission and develop processes that move that organization forward. A manager or somebody in management, they're basically responsible for the everyday activities that go toward that goal, that mission. Meaning they're looking at the tactics, the strategies, making the decisions that deal with day-to-day operations. Leaders are people who are looking to advance that mission. Okay, they're developing strategies and tactics, but they're looking to move the organization forward. They're looking to develop partnerships. They're looking to help people to improve their well-being within the organization. So there's two different separate things going on. Management's kind of evolved. So we started out with scientific management, which was this idea of it's carrot and stick. You motivate people by holding something over their head. Hey, if you do this, I'll do this in return. Then we moved to this human relations idea of, well, how do we get people to be motivated intrinsically? How do we get them to want to work on their own? And then finally, it evolved even farther to this organizational behavior, which was, let's look at the whole human element or human side of how we, how we manage people. And, we struggle with this idea of leadership and management. Northouse, who's a prominent leadership expert, he said it made perfect sense for researchers to treat the role of managers and leaders as being similar and to not emphasize the difference between them. And so there's two views that kind of overlap. The first one is that leadership is just a higher form of management. In other words, leadership is just management done really well. And then this other concept is that leadership is an essential skill for managers. So leadership as an excellent management gave rise to transformational leadership, guys. And we've already talked about transformational leadership, but it's this idea of bringing employees to kind of a higher state where we improve their ability to feel like they're doing a great job. And so we evolved to this deal of making a case for separating the two. And you need both of these things in order to be effective. Okay, if you have strong management in an organization, but you have weak leadership, you're going to have a hard time moving forward, and you're going to have a hard time evolving and changing when your environment changes. And just on the opposite, if you have weak management, but you have really strong leaders, you're going to get this idea of the long term, and you're going to have these long-term visions and goals, but you're going to struggle to actually get them done in the short term. And so we have to think about distinguishing management and leadership, and talk about what's good, what's bad, what's effective, ineffective, what's mediocre management, and what's mediocre leadership. And we have to work within our organizations to do both of these things, to try to figure out how to make them both good. And so this is a great chart that will kind of explain to you a little bit of how to think about management versus leadership. So if we look at status quo versus change, management, they're perfectly fine with status quo because they're working on the day-to-day stuff, where leaders are the ones that are wanting to move the organization forward. You look at down at the bottom, present versus future. Managers are focusing on short-range goals. Okay, they're looking at the money, the bottom line, where the leaders are looking at where do we want to be in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now, and they're both equally important. And so, if we want to just kind of define management, it's a consistent assessment of where we are in our organization. Meaning, what are we doing? What's being done? What's development of strategies to achieve our goals? How do we best use our resources? How do we best design activities to obtain what we're trying to get done? And then how do we motivate and reward people for doing a good job? And then we talked about leadership. It's more about a relationship. It's trying to move the organization toward a goal or a future that we really may not know what that looks like, but we know that's where we should be going. So we're really looking at the future. And so we started looking at really the differences. Management is based a lot on position, meaning if I'm above you, it's much of a manager-subordinate kind of relationship. I'm in charge of you. I'm telling you to do these things, you do them. Whereas a leadership is more of a relationship where leaders and followers work with each other, and followers learn to recognize those traits that make them follow a leader. Okay, and we're trying to work toward a mutual purpose. And so we're both trying to work on our this realization of a mission of the organization. But for management, they're looking at the day-to-day, the budgets, the resources. How do we carry out operations to make us successful for this day, for this week. A leader's also trying to help us realize a mission, but they're looking at putting plans in place and allocating resources to help us achieve a vision, something that's farther out than just a day-to-day or week-to-week. You look at it from a human relations standpoint. A manager, they're looking at creating charts, organizational charts, descriptions. They're hiring the right people, okay, to help us move forward. Whereas leadership, they're trying to get people to work together for a specific goal as opposed to competing against each other on a day-to-day basis. And then we look at the processes. A manager is responsible for ensuring that we're meeting the benchmarks and goals that are in place to really get us progressing forward. Whereas a leader, they're looking at trying to motivate people for the long term. They're trying to satisfy a very human need, that need of feeling like you're doing a good job, that you've got control over what's going on, that your self-esteem is good, that you feel like you're a part of the organization. So it's real important, guys, for us to look in this long term of, we're going to likely wear both these hats of a manager and a leader. And so we want to look at learning to do both of them good. And obviously this class is about leadership. One of the last classes you will take in this whole program is about management. But right now it kind of sets the tone of us learning what the difference between both of them are. Keep up the good work. You're doing great.